We talk about this often with rookie running backs. Draft capital is so important. So
Correct.
why don't we take a second today and look at realistic landing spots and draft capital for some of our favorite running backs in this year's class rather. We're going to look at 5 running backs for you today. Talk about some potential landing spots and what that could mean for their dynasty value. Hey guys, sorry for this quick interruption. Just want to let you know that we recorded these videos on a huge recording day, and unfortunately at the end of a 3-hour session, we realized that Badake's audio was corrupted. So if the audio is not up to par with what we normally have, I'm sorry, or if he sounds weird or different, we're just trying our best here. Anyway, back to the video. Hope you still enjoy the content. Do us a favor, drop a like if you want to show some support.
Come on.
Subscribe if you like Dynasty content.
As always.
And I want you to comment down below, where do you want Bijan Robinson to land? What is the ideal spot for Bijan Robinson? Because that's what we're going to cover
I got a spicy
right
one.
now.
Spicy.
You got a spicy one?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of scared.
I don't want to look at it yet.
I'm kind of scared because we're seeing reality, and I truly believe this is a reality, but I think a lot of people are saying, bro, you're going crazy here. So Let's see what happens.
All right, let's start with Bijan. I mean, to be honest, he could land in a lot of spots.
Any team can take him. Every single team can take Bijan.
I would say this is one of 5 maybe less blue chip players in the class. He's not just a good running back. He is one of the best running backs we have seen in the last 5 years as a prospect. Like he's the type of player who joins an offense from day one and transforms it from top to bottom. So a couple realistic landing spots. I would say the Eagles could really, you go any of their first round picks. They have a first round pick at 10. They have a first round pick at 32. I think that could happen. One that I think is more realistic than people would like to admit, and we actually talked about DeAndre Swift on a video this week.
Yep.
The Lions at pick 18 with
that's the sweet spot.
With the type of mentality that team has to get a running back like Bijan Robinson, I think that would just take that offense to an entirely different level. So I'll go with my most likely landing spot, or the landing spot I think could happen, or I want to happen the most. How about the Dallas Cowboys at round 1, pick 27?
Why would you think this would happen as an NFC East?
I want it to happen because I can disassociate my fandom from fantasy football. Dude, Bijan Robinson to the Cowboys.
It's amazing. It's a class.
That would be hot. I mean, that would be hot. As much as we dislike the Cowboys for fantasy and dynasty purposes, that would be sexy. And let's be honest, this is a Jerry Jones splash move. We keep saying that pick 27 with the Cowboys, it feels like they're gonna splash somehow this year.
Yeah, I hear you.
CeeDee Lamb was the last splash that they made. Jerry Jones has been just eager to just splash a little bit. So, in this scenario, the Cowboys would completely move on from Zeke and Tony Pollard. And I want if there's any Cowboys fans out there watching, God bless your soul. I want you guys to comment down below. Would you want this to happen? Because I feel like if I'm a Cowboys fan, the biggest pain right now for me, other than Dak throwing like Jameis Winston type interceptions this year, or on pace for it, is this running back room.
Right.
What do we do with Zeke and Tony Pollard? As it stands, without franchise tagging Tony Pollard, guys, this is ridiculous. Check this out. Without franchise tagging Tony Pollard, the Cowboys are already top 5 in the NFL when it comes to money spent on the running back position.
Sheesh.
Some of those other guys in the top 5, the Packers, they didn't make the playoffs. The Titans, they didn't make the playoffs. The Saints, they didn't make the playoffs. The Browns, they didn't make the playoffs. Meanwhile, the 2 teams who made the Super Bowl this year are both bottom 10 at the running back position when it comes to spending. The Chiefs are at 23, and less than 2% of their cap is going towards the running back position. The Eagles are currently 28th, which is why I struggle to see them re-signing Miles. Let's see.
Right.
But they are at 28th, and 1.25% of their cap is going towards the running back position. Guys, according to Joseph Zucker, shout out to Joseph, franchise tagging Tony Pollard will cost about $10.1 million at minimum for the Cowboys. Meaning the Cowboys would overtake the Packers by a wide margin and become the number 1 team who's paying the most to the running back position in the NFL They would be paying $26.8 million to the running back position alone.
Sheesh.
From reports, the salary cap next year is set to hit $224.8 million for each team. So that would mean the Cowboys would be spending almost 12% of their salary cap on the running back position alone. Now, we've heard talks about maybe Zeke restructuring his contract. I mean, how much would he really restructure to stay in Dallas? That's up to him. Is he going to do a team-friendly deal? Regardless, even if you restructure Zeke, no offense, guys, Zeke isn't even a top 32 running back in the NFL right now. He's not even one of 32 in my mind that you would want starting for your team. Lost not a step. He lost a couple steps. All-time great player, but not the same player anymore. You have to be brutal when it comes to being a GM of an NFL team. Something has to change. So here's what I propose. You let Tony Pollard walk in free agency. You don't need to spend more of your cap on the running back position. Now, to be fair, that first-round pick is going to cost you a little bit for Bijan, but you also cut Zeke. It's going to cost a little. You have to pay him out a little bit, but it will save you a lot of money long-term to cut Zeke. So you've moved on from Zeke. You've moved on from Tony Pollard. That's going to give you a little bit more room in the salary cap. And then you draft Bijan Robinson. This is the splash move that Jerry Jones loves for dynasty purposes, for fantasy purposes.
Yeah,
I can't think of many spots that would be better for Bijan. Now, as a NFC East fan, you guys know I like the Chiefs and the Commanders. As a Commanders fan, don't love the idea of Bijan being in the NFC East, but from a fantasy perspective, it's great. I mean, the offensive line has always been, good for the last decade or so, and they're continually getting young. They hit this year on offensive line. Smith, McGovern, Martin, and company. Great offense with Dak and CD. He could legitimately finish as the RB1 as a rookie. We could see, remember how Saquon as a rookie finished as the RB1? We could legitimately see Bijan Robinson in Dallas finish as the RB1 because he could be someone that they could center their offense around, and it could take a lot of pressure off Dak. So I like this move. I think it's possible. Now, keep in mind, guys, anyone can draft Bijan. So these are just spots that we think are realistic. But for Dynasty, this would be really hot.
Yeah, for Dynasty it is hot. I mean, I like it. Don't love. I like it, but at the same time, I don't like it just based off of the team because I am a Giants fan, but it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hear me out. Bijan Robinson, we've been saying, the media's been saying, fantasy community's been saying that this is the best running back since Saquon Barkley, a generational talent, a guy that's immediately going to come in and change your football team. Mm-hmm. Not saying that he's going to immediately change and take you to the playoffs. Not saying he's going to come immediately change it and get you guaranteed wins. He is a guy that's going to disrupt, and teams are going to have to say, holy shit, it's Bijan Robinson. Mm. I don't see how Bijan gets outside the top 10, personally. And this is why I find this whole thought process like, okay, we're going realistic, but not really. But if we're going based off the history of how much we have talked up Bijan Robinson, and you're saying he's going to fall to the 20s, you're kidding me. I don't see that happening. And I know
the NFL does not do what they used to do.
They don't do what they used to do. I completely agree. I'm with you. But hear me out.
Okay.
The Panthers in round 1 with the 9th pick overall. And you're saying, well, the Panthers need a quarterback. Yes, they do need a quarterback. But this is how I'm saying it, but I know there's a lot of ifs with the reality, but hear me out. It's fun anyway. If Bryce is gone, which he is, CJ's gone, in my opinion, which he will be, and Will Levis, which, in my opinion, will be gone before the 9th pick. I don't think the Panthers are going to take a shot at Anthony Richardson at the 9. They will go and probably get an opportunity to get another quarterback, get him in the 2nd round, or get a Jimmy G, get a Derek Carr if he doesn't sign with the Saints or whatever the case may be, and then look you take the best player available then, right? And I'm sure Bijan Robinson is ahead of some of these guys because really the top guys are in the top 10 are defensive people, right? Some edge players, Miles Murphy is out there. Tyree Wilson is another guy that's been projected to go in the top 10 a lot.
Jalen Carter, Will Anderson.
Yeah, all those guys should be off the board, right? You don't know who might jump them either if there is going to be someone that jumps in. So why not take Bijan here at the 1-9? I mean, look at the history. You drafted CMC this high before, around this area, right? He was a top 10 guy, top something guy. He was actually picked in the first round with the 8th pick, in 2017. And look how successful he was for your team. I mean, do you go back the exact same thought process and you say, you know what? We've been so successful on the ground. You just invested in, your tackle with Icky, right? Why not continue to grow there? Your defense has been balling. You got Brian Burns, Derek Brown, J.C. Horn. I mean, you have a solid defense. You just need the running back. The technically 3 needs that they have: quarterback, edge, running back. If the quarterback's not there, my next need in a team, and if I'm the GM of the Panthers, I'm looking at Bijan and saying, there's no way I'm letting this guy fall. Probably the same way people said, there's no way I'm letting Saquon go. There's no way I'm letting CMC go. I mean, when you look at the history of these guys, they have been proven for years. I mean, you can go back to like Leonard Fournette, drafted in the first round, 4th round. He was a game changer, in my opinion. Saquon, obviously a game changer with injuries. You can go back to Todd Gurley when he came in, a massive disruptor instantly. Obviously, those guys were kind of ran into the ground and dealt with a lot of injuries. But Bijan Robinson, once again, a generational talent, and you're saying you're going to let him fall into the 20s? That's not happening. I don't see that happening. I know the NFL is different, but I like this landing spot. I think this is crazy. History does repeat itself, and that is it's almost identical. The Panthers took the CMC with the 8th pick in the first round in 2017 or 2016, and now they're going to take Bijan Robinson in the first round with the 9th pick. I just see it. I can see it.
Difficult part there is they already had their franchise quarterback, right? Didn't they already have Cam Newton?
I think they did. Yes, that is a difficult part. You're right. Once again, but would you agree that if CJ Bryson Will is on the board, I know you're an Anthony Richards fan, genuinely, do you think they would take him?
I just think positional value is where I find it difficult.
For sure.
I'm not going to say it's not possible because I agree Bijan is one of the top 10 players in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know positional value-wise.
For sure.
I mean, I just got done telling you that the people in the Super Bowl.
I know. Did not.
They're bottom 10 at the position.
For sure.
Paying to the running back. I'm not going to say it's impossible because anything's possible. And I do agree, talent-wise, he should go top 10.
And that's
positional value.
That's going to wreck
I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to change everyone. It's going to skew things like, oh my gosh, we weren't expecting to go this high. I think for sure.
I'm not sitting here saying it's unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that would shock me.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you.
All right, let's move on to Jahmyr Gibbs. It's getting spicy already.
Yeah, it is.
Why don't we talk about some of the realistic landing spots that we have together, and then we'll talk about our most likely. I feel like that's a better way to do this. I think we've seen the Bills end of round 1. We've seen the Eagles end of round 1. I have one in particular that I'd like to discuss, unless there's any others that you wanted to talk about.
No, I'm just double checking that like my realistic landing spots doesn't align with yours. Okay. No, I had the Cowboys, also have the Bills, and also have the Vikings.
Okay.
I think the Vikings could be really
first round or second round for those. Probably first.
All these are first rounds. I do believe he does fall.
Okay.
He could fall in the second, but
I think so.
I think with the talent, I think those teams at the end there that need those running backs will potentially get him.
He could be an early second type guy. That wouldn't surprise us. All right, my most likely spot. How about the Saints? Round 1, pick 29.
Ooh.
Okay, they got this pick pretty much for free.
Mm-hmm.
They sent away their head coach, and they got this pick pretty much for free. This is your Alvin Kamara replacement. We already have heard the Alvin Kamara trade rumors all last season. It felt like every week there was a new trade rumor. We heard him going to the Bills. We heard him going to the Eagles. And I think those teams really wanted to make a deal. They just couldn't actually agree upon the terms. So, and just as someone who had Alvin Kamara in a redraft league, I watched a lot of Saints games, which was torture, but I did it. And Alvin Kamara does not look happy. I don't know if it's just me.
No.
He does not look happy there.
I don't think
And
Dennis Allen is the guy personally. Anyways, continue.
I don't think so either.
I don't
And
think so.
I don't think that coaching staff's going to be around much longer than this next year, but I could be wrong. But I don't think Alvin Kamara wants to be there as much as he's loved being in New Orleans. He
Mhm.
does not look happy with this coaching staff. And for whatever reason, this coaching staff is content on mismanaging him every single game. It's this weird, like something is going on. I can't tell you exactly what. I don't have per sources, but something is going on there. And then you have to keep in mind as well that Alvin Kamara is likely going to be suspended next year.
Yeah.
We'll see how long that is.
Yeah.
So whether you trade him, you keep him, you're going to need to address running back at some point. This is them saying, "Hey, I know we have a lot of needs. Let's get another superstar threat." And I think if what's going to happen, what I think may happen, is Derek Carr coming to New Orleans. You need to surround him with some more weapons. At pick 29, I don't think you get a wide receiver. I think wide receivers go earlier. I don't think you're going to get one of those elite guys, but you could get one of the elite running backs in this year's class.
Right.
And what have I always said about Jahmyr Gibbs? I actually don't comp him to Alvin Kamara. I comp him more to DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones. That's the type of player that you could be getting, that you could let him touch the ball 15 or so times a game, and he could impact it in so many different ways. This is a player who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, ran routes on over 50% of his plays this last season, caught over 40 balls.
Yep.
You can put him in the slot. You can, design things for him in the backfield to be involved in the passing game. But now you address that need to complement Chris Olave in a different way with a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm not like obsessed with it from a fantasy perspective, but it's a good enough spot for me to be confident enough to keep Gibbs where I have him in my rankings. I mean, outside of Olave and Kamara last year, there was no one for this team to really rely upon as a weapon. Now we think Kamara could be moving on. Gibbs takes his place.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just play running back. He's a weapon. They can game plan for him each week. So
Mhm.
I like the thought process of Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that could be a solid. And by the way, the NFC South is weak. It's a weak conference. I mean, this is a type of game-changing player that could take you to the playoffs, which is what you were wanting to do last year. And I guarantee you, this coaching staff, they want someone to bring them to the playoffs.
Right.
Even if it's just a playoff berth, they want to save their jobs. So
Yeah.
I think the Saints could happen. I think he could follow the first, but I think there's a chance he also goes in the first. So
Follow the second, yeah. I thought there is a chance. One of the teams that I was going to bring, or one of the landing spots I was going to bring, was actually going to be in the second, but I switched it up. So my most landing spot for Jahmyr Gibbs is in the round one, pick 31 with the Eagles.
okay.
Like you said, the Eagles have 2 first-round picks. They probably go defensive on the top, or maybe an offensive lineman, because some of those guys are getting up there in age. Right, you look at Jason Kelce, 35 years old. You look at Lane Johnson, 32 years old. You probably got to invest in the offensive line. We don't know if Jason Kelce is going to be coming back. Same thing with Lane Johnson. What does that look like for them? And not only that, they're going to have to be paying Jalen Hurts, right, a big contract after the way he just played soon. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I mean, there's so many names that I could probably say that they could potentially pay.
He's going to get paid.
That they need to keep on for this team. So it just makes sense that the Eagles says, you know what? As much as I love Miles, let's get Jahmyr in. Let's invest in him. Let him grow with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, Kenneth Gainwell also in the backfield, who's actually proven to be a decent backup, right? If Jahmyr does go down in any way. Kenny was running the ball pretty well. So, I mean, Jahmyr comes in. He's a dual guy, like Zach said, can run in between tackles, outside the tackles, and he can catch the ball. So I really like the Eagles landing spot. It's hard for me to see him falling into the second as well, with all the teams in the second half of the draft that need a running back. I mean, if you look at from pick 27 down, maybe not including the Bengals, if you want to put them there, they all need a running back. I just don't understand how they don't take someone like Jahmyr in this location. So I like this thought process here.
I agree. I think the only way he doesn't go if people are really concerned about the size.
Yeah,
But
and
we'll
I
see
think
what he weighs in at the combine.
that's how
That's
it's
the only thing
been.
that holds him back from
Yeah.
first.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 3. Let's talk about Zach Charbonnet. Oui. I think this is a second round pick. I would
Yep.
be really surprised if he's not a second round pick, but I mean, we could be wrong.
Yeah, we both like
So,
Zach.
yeah, we both like Zach Charbonnet. He's my RB3 in the class. I believe he's your RB4. We're big fans of his. So, I got a couple spots I think could make sense. The Panthers,
Mm-hmm.
round 2, pick 40. We've talked about how deep this class is. Maybe that's another reason as to maybe why they don't go running back in the first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it won't happen, just saying you could maybe get a Charbonnet in the second round. The
Agreed.
Titans, how about round 2,
Moving on.
pick 42?
Yeah,
Could
like
replace Derrick Henry. The Dolphins, I think, could make sense. My most likely landing spot, though, and then we'll hear yours. How about the Chicago Bears?
Mm.
Come to the Windy City, second round, pick
The
54. From my research and what I believe is that David Montgomery is probably moving on in free agency. This team looks to get younger, but also builds on its biggest strength, which is the run game. In 2022, the Bears ran the ball the third most times per game. Only the Falcons and the Eagles ran the ball more. This is the identity of the team, and this is where they found success. So you're bringing in Zach Charbonnet, who I believe is a 3-down running back, and you're going to try and take as much pressure off of Justin Fields as possible through the run game.
Right.
Like I said, last year, Chicago ran the
Right.
ball 32.8 times per game, which is actually ridiculous. Only the Eagles ran the ball more and the Falcons. So this is the identity of this team. I would love this landing spot for Zach Charbonnet. I think he steps into a clear and defined role on a team that has a vast history of fantasy success at the position. I mean, you don't have to go all that far back and look at David Montgomery. They drafted him in the third round of the 2019 NFL draft. Since that time, David Montgomery has put up over 1,000 all-purpose yards every season and has never finished worse than RB24. This is some research that we did for a David Montgomery take I had this week as well. But if you look at that, I mean, they had a lot of success drafting a running back who could handle the full workload. Why not do that with Zach Charbonnet? Why not add to your strengths? And I like Khalil Herbert, but I think we believe he's more of a compliment guy. There could be value if he gets full workload, but I think Zach Charbonnet makes a lot of sense here.
No, I like Zach Charbonnet, especially here to the Bears. I mean, I think it's a really nice landing spot. I think it kind of fits the mold, maybe of what they kind of wanted with Monty later on, like in the past. So I really like this landing spot. So, excuse me. So I think Zach Charbonnet will fit perfect here in the second round to the Bears.
The Bears.
Some teams I like. Atlanta in the second as well. The Raiders, if they don't sign Josh Jacobs. And like you said, the Titans. But my most likely landing spot would be the Arizona Cardinals in the second round with the 34th pick. It just makes sense to me, right? I mean, they have, if we really look at this landscape of where this Cardinals team is at, Kyler Murray will probably miss half of the season. DeAndre Hopkins is either going to get cut or traded. They just hired a new head coach in Jonathan Gannon. They don't have an offensive coordinator yet, so maybe that's going to be a new perspective. And maybe when we understand who that offensive coordinator is, we can kind of understand the direction this team potentially could be going based off that offensive coordinator's history. So a lot of changes coming to this team. I think they're in a weird, we have our franchise quarterback, but we're rebuilding, right? Like it just feels very like we're not in the right spot right now, and maybe it's a gap. I call it a gap year for these Cardinals because Kyler Murray is not going to be playing the whole season. Excuse me. I do believe that we'll invest. One of the biggest things that they do need is offensive line, so that's why I have him going in the second round. I do believe they'll probably trade back or invest in offensive line, or maybe just invest in that in free agency, in my personal opinion. And they have the 10th most cap space in the NFL, so they should definitely have enough time, enough money to be addressing some of the areas that they really need to go, especially in defense. Like defense, I think the defense is decent enough to kind of maintain, but what was the biggest problem was the offensive line. So if they invest in a couple offensive line guys and get Zach Charbonnet, who I personally think will fit perfectly in here, could be the better, faster, stronger, more well-rounded running back for this Arizona Cardinals team, then that's exactly what they can do here, right? And my biggest thing, okay, we saw Kyler Murray, and one of his talents is running, but he probably needs to stay in the pocket a little bit more. You probably need to invest in that line. He was taking the beating. You probably need a guy that has to block for him. And Zach Charbonnet can do that. He can be the guy, the big body guy, literally the big body guy for K1 to not take the hits, right? So I think this feels very likely to me. I really love this landing spot. They need a running back. They haven't invested in a running back in so long, in my opinion. I mean, I went back,
draft,
probably David Johnson, but maybe that was probably not that David Johnson was probably the highest, the most talented running back they had in a while, right? So you look at Kenyon Drake, you look at Chase Edmonds. It's like, okay, let's invest in the backfield a little bit, a little bit. So I like this landing spot.
They did technically invest in James Conner in free agency, but I definitely get what you mean as far as like James Conner's not the running back on this team in 2 years.
Exactly.
You got to think about that. And one of my comps for Zach Charbonnet was actually James Conner. So I like the fit. I like how that could kind of make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Sean Tucker.
Come on, baby.
This is interesting because we don't know what the NFL thinks of Sean Tucker yet. We really don't. We like him. We hope the NFL likes him as well. We'll have to wait for the combine, and I mean, he could go anywhere. But let's talk about some realistic landing spots. I think he goes 3rd round.
Yeah, I'm there
maybe
with you.
4th. I'm not sure. It's difficult to say.
Yeah, I'm there.
I think the Falcons could make sense. I think the Cardinals could make sense. My most likely landing spot is the Panthers. I know you talked about the Panthers earlier. I got the Panthers here, round 3, pick 94. As we know, they just moved on from CMC, their franchise running back, in the middle of the 2022 season. What I wrote down in my notes, which kind of contrasts to what we said earlier.
No, it's good.
Is I think it's highly unlikely that you replace CMC, that kind of weapon, in this year's class because of the team needs that they have. However, Tucker could fill this role for now, and he has a potential to grow into that kind of star status. But I get where you're coming from. I hear your take on Bijan because I could see how it could happen. But it's also important to remember D'Onta Foreman is a free agent. So if this were to be Sean Tucker's landing spot, he would just be competing with Chuba Hubbard and Raheem Blackshear. And we both believe in Sean Tucker enough to think he could get a nice, clear, defined role.
Agreed.
With the Carolina Panthers. Clear path to RB1 opportunities. Panthers' offensive line was atrocious heading into last year. Yeah. And they improved it with Icky. Icky was a great addition to that line. So that line is consistently improving. And this team, if you watch the Panthers, they were at their best when the run game was thriving. So this is hopefully going to be the identity of this team heading into 2023. There are some cons though, not on the most explosive offense, right? So difficult to say how many scoring opportunities Sean Tucker might have.
For sure.
In that system. I mean, how many times are the Panthers going to be scoring touchdowns? How many touchdowns will they score? It's. I'm not saying they won't be good, but there are question marks around that. And then the quarterback position. What are we doing at quarterback here? Because that obviously will define most people's roles within the offense. And if they were to re-sign a guy like D'Onta Foreman, that would be, or one of these guys in free agency, that would be tough for Sean Tucker, I think. Not that he can't beat those players out, but those are good running backs.
Yeah.
So Sean Tucker to the Panthers, I like it. I like the way that it feels in my head, if that makes sense. Like I like the way that this could
pan out,
result in fantasy value. So Sean Tucker to the Panthers in round 3, but we don't know what the NFL thinks of Tucker. I don't know if the Dynasty community likes him more. We'll find out.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hopefully we'll find out we haven't heard much of any of these guys outside of the top ones. So hopefully we get some more information at the NFL Combine. Right after the NFL Combine with all the rumors and stuff. But yeah, I do like the landing spot. If they don't go Bijan and they invest, let's just say they do get CJ and they get some weapons that can go around him. I like Sean Tucker to this landing spot for sure.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. Some other realistic landing spots I would say the Bears as well. Kind of like what your thought process was. Zach Charbonnet, probably in the 3rd round though. Miami also in the 3rd round. For me, for Sean Tucker, but my most likely landing spot would be the Atlanta Falcons in the third round with the 76th pick. So I really, really like this landing spot. And kind of what Zach was alluding to earlier with the Bears, the Atlanta Falcons were second in rushing attempts in the NFL last year. And that was because they didn't have the quarterback and they were really trying to figure out what was happening. But I mean, they've all said it that they're going to be riding with Desmond Ridder and that he is going to be their quarterback for 2023. If that does change between this video and the season starts, which I do believe there could be a change, that maybe that's a whole different conversation. But I think they're drafting people that they're drafting offensive weapons they need. I mean, we saw the last 2 years. You draft Kyle Pitts, you draft Drake London, and now you get your running back in the third round. That is really good value that you find some good guys. I think Tuck will be the perfect fit, a clear pathway to a workload. The Falcons may have to have a salary cut with, maybe a Cordell Patterson. Maybe they do keep Cordell Patterson. He just goes back to special teams in some way, somehow. Tyler Algier was a 5th round draft pick. So the Falcons, in my opinion, will be a perfect fit for Sean Tucker, a guy that instantly, in my opinion, if he gets drafted to this team, he is the number one running back in this backfield. I would say maybe there will be some hurdles with Cordell Patterson if he still is on this team. But I think they would ride with Sean Tucker with third round draft capital. Cordell Patterson, 33, 32 years old. I just don't see them riding with him for another year. So I like this thought process. And with Desmond Ridder under center, they're going to have to rely on the running game a little bit more once again. I mean, we kind of saw him in the second half with Desmond. We didn't really see a whole season, so maybe they do rely on the run game. You have Drake London, you have Kyle Pitts. It seems perfect for me.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. My most likely scenario for Tucker is that he's a complimentary, like really good complimentary, like a Tony Pollard.
Mm-hmm.
In this scenario, I would be concerned fantasy-wise. I'm not saying that the Falcons are unrealistic, because I think that they definitely could. But I would be concerned that Algier might play a big role still.
I can definitely see that for sure. I think there's a massive talent gap. And I think he may play a role early. And then once they see that Sean Tucker is significantly superior in talent than Tyler Algier, I think that switch can happen. So I definitely see that thought process.
Yeah, let's see. All right, let's talk about Zach Evans to end.
Oh, boy.
Obviously, you don't like Zach Evans. I do like Zach Evans.
This was tough, I'll be honest. This was tough. I didn't know what
Was it tough?
It was. I have a good landing spot, though, I think.
I just want him to get drafted in the third round so everyone can stop hating. Let's talk about some landing spots. I think the Eagles could do it at the end of the second. I'm not saying they will. I think they can. Maybe they spend those first round picks on other positions. They can have a luxury pick on one of these running backs that they like. We'll see who it is. Yeah. I comped Zach Evans very similar to Miles Sanders, so I could see how he could replace him. The Rams at round 3, pick 70 makes sense to me. Ravens in round 3 makes sense to cover off for JK. My most likely landing spot, though, how about the Dolphins? Round 3, pick 85.
I like it.
The Dolphins, they desperately need a running back on the team who can handle 15-plus carries and offer more between the tackle explosiveness. They desperately need someone like that.
Right.
Raheem Mostert is 30 going on 31, undersized, and I think he's a free agent. Jeff Wilson helped fill this role for a little bit last year, but he's 27. I think he's just a guy. He's a free agent. Think about what Jeff Wilson did like in those first 2 games that he was there. Zach Evans, I like Zach Evans more than Badake. I think he's one of the top 5 running backs in this class, if not higher. I think he can absolutely do exactly what Jeff Wilson did those first 2 games for this offense. You also got Salvin Ahmed, who's just a guy undersized. Myles Gaskin, just a guy undersized. They have so many undersized running backs. And guess what? It has not worked out. It's not worked out for you. Maybe we decide to get a running back like Zach Evans, who's going to be around, I would say, 6 foot, 210, 215. He's going to be able to handle that kind of workload.
Right.
So I like this landing spot because Zach Evans would join an electric offense with Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. He's got an offensive guru for a head coach and Mike McDaniels. They already have their franchise left tackle in Teron Armstead, who should be back and healthy. There's a clear pathway to opportunities from day one. Yes, I think Zach Evans can pretty easily beat out Salvin Ahmed and Miles Gaskin, unless you guys are
That's
big
the
Gaskin stands.
big Gaskin got not jokes.
The cons, the offensive line as a whole needs to improve. It's not the best offensive line.
Right.
So that could be a little bit concerning.
Mm-hmm.
The team currently operates more through the air than through the ground. But I would say Zach Evans could be the answer for this team to not be such a one-dimensional offense. I think they need to improve because teams were able to game plan around the Dolphins in the second half of the season. Why do we think that was? Because no one expected Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. I mean, you and I really liked that combination. We thought it was going to be great, but I don't think we expected them to be that explosive to begin the season.
No way. No way.
You saw defenses start to adjust second half of the year as more and more game film was out, and they tried to address this with Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson is just a guy. Get Zach Evans in there. Let him be your guy for the next 3 to 4 years who you can rely on in the first and second down role. So I'm a big fan of Zach. I like this landing spot. I think it makes a lot of sense. And the Dolphins, no matter who it is, they need to draft the running back. I just think Zach Evans can be that guy for them.
Yeah, no, Dolphins definitely a realistic landing spot. I definitely like the thought process. I think this is most ideal and most sought after landing spot for any running back. So I definitely like this.
Sure.
Definitely like this landing spot.
Yeah.
Some other realistic thought process I have for Zach Evans landing spots, I have the Chiefs in round 3. I have the Bears in round 3, and also have the Miami Dolphins in round 3. Okay. But my most ideal landing spot will be the Denver Broncos in round 3.
You just want to shove them to a backup role, don't you?
It's not, no, and I'll give you my thought process here, right? Because I did say this is what could happen. So obviously a lot of changes coming, trying to paint the picture here. Sean Payton's coming in. They need to address the running back room. There's really no one there outside of Javonte Williams, and we know that injury there, right? I mean, you have Latavius Murray, Mike Boone, and a bunch of Randys that no one really cares about, right? You got Chase Edmonds there. It's not going to be anything. So you either address it in free agency or you get a running back, in the NFL draft. And I think maybe that's kind of the thought process, and that's where maybe Sean Payton could be going in the NFL draft. He doesn't have a lot of draft capital, and he doesn't have too much money based off of all of these high caliber players that he might have to be paying soon, and of Russell Wilson, right? So Javonte Williams out with that really bad ACL tear. I do believe he is the lead back in this backfield. But the way I'm seeing is that you draft Zach Evans, who's going to come in and fit perfectly in the backfield, be the 1-2 guy until Javonte does come back, set his role. And then when Javonte does come back, you get more of like a 50-50 workload or a 60-40 workload, to where it's like, my thought process with Zach Evans as well, for people who are new to this channel, I don't believe he's an all-down guy, right? I think he's a really good complementary, role that he can work his way up to potentially take that role from somebody. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to take a role from somebody in Javonte Williams. And when Javonte Williams does come back, they're saying, well, we can't get rid of this guy. We can't get rid of Zach Evans. Look how great he's been doing. Let's put him in a rotation. And I think that's the thought process I'm seeing Zach Evans in. I would probably say no matter what role, no matter what team he goes to. So I like this landing spot, and I think he will be fantasy relevant in his first year, because we all know how, at least for me, when running backs tear the ACL, it's not an automatic, okay, they're back on the field, get them going. No, it takes a while. It takes the whole year for them to get that mental hurdle and the physical hurdle. So I think Zach Evans will be drafted high in rookie drafts and then probably get taken back down once Javonte is back. So I personally like the landing spot. I think this is a good 60-50-50, 60-40. And Javonte Williams is used to this with Michael Carter back in college. So he knows how to, maybe that's what we need from maybe that's what Javonte Williams needs in his career, is a good guy to complement him as well. Yeah. So I like the landing spot.
Yeah, I think the Broncos could definitely address their running back needs in this draft. It's a deep class, so I definitely think it's possible. All right, guys, let us know if you want us to do a part 2 And a lot of other running backs out there that we could give landing spots for.
Mm-hmm.
These hypotheticals are mostly for fun, so don't
Yeah.
take it too seriously. How could this team draft this guy here?
For sure.
But we do want you to let us know what you think about these landing spots and where you think that these players could end up going. So let us know in the comments below.
Mm-hmm.
Drop a like to show some support. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content, and we'll see you in the next one very, very soon.
Yo, what's good?
What
Thanks
up?
for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
Watch
Now,
it.
You can also subscribe
Right now.
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLandFam.